We're going to talk with Paul Hamilton as the Sabres offseason is, upon us. See if Paul's got, I think only need like 17 more teams to link JJ Peterka to, the most linked player in NHL rumor history. The agent, Paul, I think we're all starting to, you've been on this from the start. Like, we're starting to see, like, okay, now he's in for the third pick somehow, and now he's in for this team and that team, yada, yada, yada. Good morning, Paul.
How are you?
I'm doing all right, We got more than just Peterka to talk about here for this offseason, but it definitely has, I think it's reached, I think the phrase might be jump the shark. The Peterka rumor stuff has jumped the shark. A rumor here, a rumor there, every single day. Oh, this team too. Oh, and this team too. That seems to be a mission that's being taken upon.
Yeah, and a lot of it's coming from a guy who had him going to the New York Rangers at the trade deadline, and that was not true at all. At that point. So, that's the thing about most of these rumors aren't true. That come up, and as you said, it's starting to get ridiculous, and I think too many people are starting to listen to his agent. Or not starting, have been, who obviously wants to get him out of Buffalo in the worst way, basically. And I've seen agents do this before, wanting to get players out of here because they feel, you get them to the New York Rangers or somebody like that, you're going to get a bigger contract for them when you get to a bigger market team. So it appears that might be what's in play here.
Yeah, Paul, there's a lot of stuff that could just be rumor, and then there's stuff that would be true context. Like, what's the Sabres' appetite to extend him, right? Would they be interested in one of these deals that they'd signed with the last group of young players? Samuelson, Cousins, Tage, Dahlin. They had a core that they locked up, and some it went okay, and some it didn't. I wonder what the Sabres' appetite is for those big long-term deals on some of these younger players, and whether or not Peterka would be a guy that they would be interested in that for. Because if they're not interested long-term, well, maybe that's why the agent's starting to kind of pull the levers to get him somewhere that would be interested in something long-term. What do you think the Sabres' appetite is on Peterka?
Yeah, maybe that's why the agent really got started with this, because he might not, they may be at an impasse as far as the contract goes, and so he's taking another tact and doing it the other way. So the problem with JJ, he does have 55 goals in his last 2 years. He also analytically is not good at all, and it's you look at him in his own end. I think there was some improvement. I think it was a small improvement, but he certainly, when you look at it, does not grade out as a good player in his own end, and his numbers would speak to that. So the thing is, and Ryan McLeod, I think, is a perfect example here. What do you do with him? I mean, he had career years or in goals and assists and points, but it's only been 1 year. So the Sabres have been down this road before. Samuelson would be a perfect example. Cousins would be a perfect example. Well, you had one good year. Let's wrap them up for 7-8 years or whatever it might be. And Ryan McLeod's had one good year. And quite honestly, I think Ryan McLeod has a good opportunity to do it again. But will he? Or is this just an outlier? Where he goes from 12 to 20 goals and his points are quite a bit more. So, Do you after one good year, are you going to lock him up for 7? It'll be an interesting thing with him too. Peterka's had 2 good goal-scoring years, but he hasn't been a complete player. When you look at that, there are folks who have come out and said because of his numbers, the Sabres probably better off without him. With the numbers that they have. So. It depends, how much do you put into that? How much do you think he can get better at a young age and play much better defensively and improve that way, where, he isn't a liability on the ice.
How do you see the whole Sabres top six right now, Paul? And if Peterka were to be dealt, maybe somebody does knock their socks off with some sort of offer, would you think it would have to include a forward coming back with the state of the Sabres forward group? Do you feel like they think they're deep enough to move a guy out of there and be okay? Or do you think they even think they need to add? If you look at it now, I mean, Zucker or Quinn or Benson in there, and you've got Kulik, who had a nice rookie season. Norris, we haven't really gotten to see yet. Do you think they have enough in that top six, even if they were to move Peterka out?
I don't think they do. Right now, I don't think Benson should be in your top six. He's not producing enough as far as goals go. I mean, I like the way he plays, but and I think eventually, as he gets bigger and stronger, I think you will see a jump in his production. Whether that's this year, I don't know. But I when we talk about a trade for a top six guy, a veteran top six guy, for me, it's to get Benson out of the top six, and then, but that would include Peterka into the top six. And as far as I'm concerned, McLeod, Zucker, Greenway, I really don't want any of them in the top six. I mean, when you got injuries, yeah, Greenway can jump up there and do a good job, but I don't think you're going to be a better team and a playoff team if he's going to be in your top six all year, other than filling in for injuries or something like that. So if Peterka goes, I think you have a two-player hole there, where you're or Benson's going to wind up there again. Yeah. And I think to myself, okay, how does that make you better? And right now, I don't think it does. So, Peterka goes. I think you're probably got to get yourself two guys to get in your top six.
That's part of what I wonder, Paul, about the Peterka stuff is how else would they make a big change? Because it seems to me to make a big change, they have to make a move to do that. It's not just going to be free agency signing somebody off the market. So, you're not going to deal picks and prospects, I don't think, for somebody that's going to make a big difference. Although you did just do that with Savoy for McLeod, and he was a nice player for them. So, Peterka, could the agent bother them enough that they think about it in a way that maybe they weren't before and say, like, all right, well, is this our avenue to get something big done that we need to get done? Maybe if it's him and Byram, whatever. Because I don't know what he would fetch, but to me, the Peterka stuff has legs only because it, to me, looks like the avenue to make a big change if they have the appetite to do it.
Yeah, they have a lot of ammunition. Their pick, is their pick, and one of their better prospects can maybe get you what you're talking about here. As you mentioned, Byram can maybe get you what you're talking about here. I think they have ammunition to be able to, make a type of deal. And teams have players that, like what we're talking about, that maybe are going to be in a rebuild, and are looking to rebuild, and they're looking for young players. And it's like, all right, yeah, well, we've got this veteran, and then maybe it's time to move on from this veteran, and because it's not the direction that as a team that we're headed in right now, and you can take advantage of that. Certainly, you have salary cap space. Let's say Dallas decides they can't make a deal with Robertson and make him available. Well, what's the thing that can really help the Dallas Stars the most? Take a player off their hands and help them, not only Robertson, but maybe Sagan, who makes around $9 million or something, and maybe you don't want him, but you can get Robertson and you take Sagan's money from Dallas. Then Dallas is really happy, even though and I know he's only has 1 year left, but still they're up against the cap in this 1 year. So maybe it's a trade where it doesn't cost you all that much from a prospect standpoint or a draft pick standpoint, but you're getting a guy in Robertson that you want, and all right, we'll take Sagan too because we'll take his $9 million.
Well, that is a weaponizing cap space type of idea, Paul, and it's also one that I can't really remember the last time they've done something like that, right?
I'm trying to think of the players. Oh, the St. Louis trade, where they had to take Berglund and they had to take who was it, Sobotka.
Yeah.
It's not who they wanted,
Right.
but in order to make the trade, they had to take that money away from the St. Louis Blues.
That's what I mean. Like that's what is that? Is that 7 years ago now? That deal. And that is a good example of that because they did that with two guys. The cap going up too. Like maybe that would change their opinion on an idea like that. Like, hey, if we need to take a huge salary like a Sagan to get this deal done, the cap's going up anyway. $95 million this year, and something it could be above $100 the year after. It's like, they're going to have to spend money anyway, and all these teams are going to have more and more room, except for Dallas already has so much committed. You might not have as many opportunities, I guess, to be able to weaponize your cap space because the league is getting more money.
Right, but Dallas is in that spot.
Right.
And it depends what happens with Robertson. Or does he become available? I mean, do they figure out they can't re-sign him? That's what they're hoping to do right now. And all right, well, if we're gonna trade you him, you're like Marchment. That was a salary dump. I don't know if they necessarily wanted to get rid of him, but they sent him to Seattle to get rid of some salary. And the same thing could happen if Robertson becomes available again, and they can't re-sign him, and the Sabres could look at it too. Let's say in that particular case, well, you're only going to get stuck with that 9 whatever salary hit for a year. You can afford it for this year, and then next year that's gone, so you don't have to worry about that. So. And that's, just an example. I mean, Dallas maybe would look at somebody else. Maybe has 2 or 3 years left on a deal. And it's like, all right, well, you got to take him and his money, and we'll trade you Robertson for a second-round pick or something like that.
Paul, 2 more things for you. Zegras got traded. Trevor Zegras traded from the Ducks to the Flyers. That's a name. His name had been out there for probably a couple of years here, right? And he's part of the Anaheim core that obviously didn't get the job done. They've been pretty bad for a while. Any sort of idea that the Sabres could have or should have done that from you?
Personally, I wouldn't, because of the regression in this player's play. Certainly he could come back. He's very young. And had his first 2 years had good numbers, but it's been a very bad regression, and I'm to a point now. I think the Sabres have enough guys who have regressed, and don't know if I would be interested in bringing in another in the hope that he refines it. He could, but it's like, all right, the Sabres have done a lot of that. Guys who, Cousins scores 31 goals. Haven't seen anything like it since he did it. Quinn looked like he was on the rise, and all of a sudden injuries have really put him down. The names. We can go on and on. And so that's why, if it were me, I just wouldn't have been. And you look around the league, it seems like fans have a lot bigger opinion of Zegras than maybe GMs and coaches do around the NHL. Look at what the trade actually wound up being, and a lot of folks would have said, well, that's not enough for him. Well, again, I think his reputation around the league, maybe with fans and everything else, is a lot bigger than it is with GMs that wouldn't be real excited to take a chance on him right now.
Is that just, we think, could that just be he scored the Michigan 3 times, has had a few goals like that, and then also was on the NHL video game cover? I feel like that can inflate a guy's profile a little bit.
Sure, it could. Absolutely could. I mean, he gets that highlight reel goal, but it's like, yeah, but if you don't see much other than that, and his defensive play isn't that good, and now he wasn't on a team for a while that played real good defense, but it's, I could listen to somebody who has the other opinion on that and say, yeah, I respect that.
Yep.
And it could go that way. Definitely could go that way. But the Sabres have guys that are like him, and I just don't know. All right, add another one. Well, Okay, another guy that you're sitting there going, well, hopefully he can get back to what he did a couple of years ago. Yeah, hopefully so can, And,
It's a perfect transition from our next question, Paul.
yes.
Hopefully, should the Sabres be in the goalie market?
Yeah.
And to what level?
Right there. It's right now. Hopefully, Luukkonen can get back to not what he was last year, but he was for the last 35 games the year before, where his numbers were some of the best in the NHL. Devin Levi. Well, hopefully, his AHL season, for the most part, except for the last playoff series, translates into the NHL. His resume would say that it would. Arguably the best college goaltender that's ever lived, an AHL All-Star, been now in the minors for a year and a half and done extremely well. So you would think, yeah, that translates into being a good goaltender. But is he ready yet? Is he ready to be an NHL goaltender? And I definitely think they should be looking for a goaltender, because I would, as a general manager, would not be comfortable going into the season with those two right now, with the hope that because if neither one of them do, you probably aren't making the playoffs next year either. You're not making the playoffs without very good goaltending. It's as simple as that. And they both could wind up being excellent. And they both could wind up not being good at all. And if that happens, and you haven't traded for a goaltender or brought in a decent goaltender, you're going to be in deep trouble trying to make the playoffs.
Paul Hamilton, his appearance brought to you by Raylax, Honda Raylax. We got this. So Kevin Adams today, Paul, we'll be waiting to hear what he has to say. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, there's some big questions for Kevin Adams about all these reports and where they stand on, what they could do in terms of remaking their roster. Alex Tuck. So we'll get some good stuff out of Kevin Adams today, maybe.
When I always tell people, it's June 24th. If we're still having these same conversations on September 24th, now that's a whole different ball game. But there's still a long ways to go before the first game. The first game isn't Monday, and let's see how this all goes down. And as I said, if we're having these same conversations on September 24th, then it's a big problem.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Paul Hamilton. Sabres off season. We'll get Kevin Adams and Jerry Fortin speaking today on the draft, but on other stuff as well.